Hi, this is Julie Balke, and welcome to Get Career Happy with Julie, a program of Anderson Community Television. I want to talk to you today about how you work. Now, I don't necessarily mean the stuff on your desk, how you get that done. I'm talking instead about how you get paid. You know, years and years and years ago, all jobs were a box on a company's organization chart. And so you knew when you walked in to become an employee of an organization, you were probably handed a job description, but you knew what was expected. You knew what the lines were around your box on the organization chart. And sure, there was an awful lot of comfort in that. When you walk in the morning, you knew what was expected. We're in a different time now. Over the last several years, technology obviously has had a huge difference in how we work. More people are working from home or work in flexible work arrangements than ever before. That on top of the fact that in the job market, so much of what we do is something that can be done remotely, is something that doesn't have to be done inside the confines of an org chart or an office. So, where are we today? Right now, 1/3 of all workers do something that is vaguely or loosely called freelancing. And let me define that. A freelance situation is one in which you're what's called a contractor or a project-based employee. In other words, you aren't necessarily on the payroll as an employee. And your job looks nothing like show up Monday morning and then work all week until the end of the day Friday. In a lot of ways, again, that's a real plus. We're in a place now where in the next 5 years, so we're taping this in 2014, by 2019, over half of all workers will be freelancers of some sort. Now, that's exciting and scary at the same time, like a lot of things that are changes from what we're used to. Let me tell you why. From the employer's perspective, having a stable of people or a list of people to call when they need a particular thing done can be easier on their budget and can also be just better in terms of managing people's time. So if a project is needed to be done, I call somebody who I know has done a great job in managing projects and bring them in for a specified period of time, either until the project is over or 20 hours a week for 6 months or whatever it is. Then the freelancer has the opportunity to say, yes, that's okay for me, or no, it isn't. From the freelancer side of the desk, it's an opportunity to say yes to things that are really exciting and interesting to you and no to things that aren't. If you're in a traditional job or you've been in a traditional job, you know that your ability to say, no thanks, I really don't want to do that, is limited, if not just plain old non-existent. And we all have parts of our jobs where we don't really like it when we have to do those things. Maybe it's something that's once a month, once every 2 weeks, and for some of us, frankly, it's our entire jobs where we say at the end of the week, man, I hate that, I hate every minute of that, and I can't believe I've got to come back in 2 days. Freelancing can give you the opportunity to say yes to things that are in your wheelhouse and things you know you can do well, and no to things that aren't, or things you just don't have time for. You all know that there are certain things you do a better job at than others, and certain things that you go for and attack with a level of energy and enthusiasm that you certainly do not have for other things. That's just human nature. There's never a job, or rarely is there a job, where you're going to love 100% of what you're asked to do. So, the downside for a lot of people is, well, wait a minute, if I'm a project manager, if I do work as needed, if I'm a contractor or freelancer, there's no security in that. That's true. But let me put this out there. Today, is there really much security in a job anyway? You know, either this has happened to you or you have friends that this has happened to, where everything's fine on Monday and on Friday you were laid off, or someone in the next office from you is laid off. That's not security. What happens is when we get very clear on what our outcomes and our objectives are, and we know there's a time frame or a limitation around the work they're being asked to do or being paid to do, it actually is a much more realistic way of looking at work. Then we can be on alert for other opportunities, and we aren't necessarily lulled into a false sense of security. Now, it may seem like I'm really pushing you toward this, and well, I kind of am, and here's why. I think the older you get, the more important it is that you have work to do that does not depend on someone who's the age of your son or daughter hiring you. You know, depending on how old you are right now, if you're in your 50s, it can be really intimidating to to sit across the desk from someone in human resources who's simply looking at you as someone from the pile. And you're sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, they're looking at me and they're seeing their mom or dad and they're not necessarily going to be someone they want to hire. I hear it all the time around the whole topic of age discrimination. Being a project worker, a contractor, a freelancer, someone who's what's called a 1099 employee, and that's an IRS designation, can give you a lot of security that you don't have in your job right now, even though you may think you do. You know, it's scary. A lot of change is scary, but I prefer to look at this from an opportunity perspective. You know, the older we get, the more freedom we want. To say no to things, to travel for a month, to go see our grandkids, to maybe take up a hobby or a community activity. And so freelancers I know, they do things like they'll take a project, then they'll take a couple weeks off. And of course they price themselves in such a way that they can take a couple weeks off. Or they might say, I'm only going to work 20 hours a week because my daughter just had a baby and she needs me. It's a way to work on your terms. And I know this is a huge head shift for those of us who've been in the job market for more than, say, 15, 20 years. It's a new way of thinking of things. But if you're watching this and you're part of the younger generation, you're a millennial or a Gen Y, then this to you makes a lot of sense. What we see is that millennials, or folks in what we call Gen Y, are people who want freedom, flexibility, job satisfaction, the ability to say yes to what they want to say yes to, and no to what they don't want to do. And for those of us who are not in Gen Y, this just sounds like spoiled whining, doesn't it? Well, of course, you're not ever going to love all of your job. And no, you can't go at 10 o'clock in the morning and work out. But what we're not seeing is that a lot of those people are working well beyond when the lights go out in the office. So the whole idea of flexible boundaries at work, flexible workplaces, is an idea not only whose time has come, but is not going away. So I call this having a career portfolio. So in other words, your work week, instead of looking like 40 hours a week at one place, might look something like this. You're involved in one project that you've committed to put in 12 to 15 hours a week on. And so you might do that on Monday morning, Tuesday morning, and Thursday night. You've got a volunteer activity that you love that you do every Tuesday afternoon. Then you've got another organization who needs some of your skills and talents, and maybe even a different set of skills and talents than your 12 to 15 hour a week organization needs. And you do that maybe 18 to 24 hours a week, but it's the kind of work where it doesn't matter when you get it done or when during the week you get it done. They don't care if you're getting it done in the evenings, 2 o'clock in the morning, or on the weekends. So it's results and outcomes based versus I have to see your butt in my seat based. Believe me, that's a lot more fun and in a lot of ways it's a lot more productive. And organizations are getting a lot more flexible and bringing people on for that kind of work. I only see this increasing in terms of the amount of opportunity. So wouldn't it be beautiful to have the type of work week where you get to decide how and where you're working? Now, of course, you're still working and you're working hard. And frankly, in a lot of cases, you're working a lot harder than ever because you're trying to juggle several balls. But the difference here is that you are in control, not your employer or the person down the hall. You have potentially a lot of bosses. And all the different things you're doing, you have someone you report to. That's never going away, and that should never go away because certainly we have to be responsible to someone. But what happens is the organization or the people that are controlling your work, they're controlling your work, not your time or not you. So if you've got something you need to tend to or something you like to do or a yoga class you like to go to, or I have a friend who says every Friday afternoon he created his business so that he could play golf every Friday afternoon. But he works like crazy the rest of the week. There's no such thing as an 8-hour day for him. So it's a different way to look at work. In my mind, it's much healthier and much smarter than the way we used to look at it. So how do you get this for yourself? Well, first thing you have to do is decide what you want and what it needs to look like. So I'm a big proponent of sitting back and saying, all right, what would my dream week look like? What would my dream career portfolio contain? And believe me, your ideal career portfolio is going to look different than that of other people that you know. And that's okay, because you're different from the other people you know as well. I'm sure you have friends and contacts who have jobs that you think, oh my gosh, I would hate that job. Just like you have friends and contacts who have jobs that you think, I'd love that job. So you are unique in terms of how you spend your time from a work perspective. So here's how you need to think about it. Your skills and your experience and your knowledge are the things that people will pay for. So you want to think in terms of what are your skills? What is your experience? What have you done? What have you done successfully? And what do you want to do more of and keep doing? Now, if you were with the same company for 15, 20 years, you're going to have a certain knowledge about that company, about its products and services. And frankly, if you've been there for a couple years, it's the same thing. That experience or that knowledge may or may not be transferable. It depends on what you want to go do. But know that if you leave an organization on Friday, on Monday, the only thing someone's taken away from you is the paycheck. And I get that that's a big deal, okay? But what I'm saying is, what you can do and what you know and what your experience is, that goes with you. So then the question becomes, how else do I use this and how do I carve it up and sell it to different people? There are people who do accounting for small businesses, and the small businesses only need them 2 days a month. So clearly they're going to need more than one client. But how many clients do they want to take on? And then how do you connect with those people? Those are some of the questions that you have to ask yourself. But before you even go there, you want to make sure that you are extremely clear on what it is you are good at and what you like to do. If you're great at managing information for someone, but you absolutely hate it, you probably don't want to make a career of that. But maybe you could handle it 4 to 8 hours a week. So maybe you could find somebody who doesn't need 40 hours of you managing data, but would love to have 4 to 8 hours of you managing data. There are all kinds of organizations out there who need some of what you have to offer. One of the downfalls here is we are generally, as human beings, not very good at articulating and identifying what it is that we have that somebody else would want. This is one of the biggest traps that we fall into when it comes to creating this kind of a life or a career for ourselves. Because sometimes when there's things we're good at, we generally downplay those, discount those, don't give ourselves credit for it. But other people, believe me, no matter what you're good at, there are plenty of other people who are not good at it. And they look at you and they think, how do you know how to do that? How are you so good at that? And so there is a market for whatever you're good at, likely. But the first thing you have to do is get clear on what that is. So take out a piece of paper and start writing those things down. What are the things that you've been complimented for? What are the things that you like to do? What are the things that you've done in your jobs, in your community activities, and in your volunteer work that people come to you for? What do people come to you for? That's a great question, isn't it? People will only come to you for something if they know that they're going to get good information and that you're going to be capable of providing it. If they come to you for something and you're not capable or you don't do a good job with it, believe me, they're not coming back to you again. So you want to pay attention at what do people come to you for. What have you been told in your past performance appraisals that you're good at? Who do you know who might need some of the knowledge, skills, and experience you have? Maybe it's dealing with difficult customers. Maybe it's a technology skill. Maybe it's operating, maybe it's website knowledge. Maybe it's the ability to answer the phone and be unfailingly pleasant with every single person who calls in, no matter what their issue is, no matter what their mood is. Maybe it's complex problem solving. Maybe it's creativity and innovation. Now think about how you've used those things. How have you used those things to contribute, either in your community involvement, in your nonprofit, in your kids' school, or in your past jobs that you've had. When you create a career portfolio, it needs to be based on you. What are your skills? What can you take forward? And of course, what will people pay you for? Yeah, there's that pay thing, isn't there? It'd be fun if we could get paid to do only the stuff we love to do. There are people who love to cook that look for ways to get paid to love to cook, but they also find that sometimes when you get paid for it, you don't like to cook so much anymore. So some of this truly is trial and error. I think it's really, really important these days to think about multiple streams of income. And if you've got more than one freelancer project job or someone paying you to do that, if one goes away, then you've got something else to fall back on. So open up your mind, Connect with people who know you and know you professionally and know what you're good at. Connect with those people, have these conversations with them. Dream big about what else you can do to get away from the dependency on a corporate situation that may or may not be the best thing for you long term. I know it's really, really scary, but I'll tell you that those people who've stepped out and said, I'm going to do work on my terms and I'm going to decide what I say yes and no to, the most common piece of feedback I hear back from them is, why did it take me so long to do this? I can't imagine doing anything else. Can this work for you? Maybe. I know if you don't start thinking about it now, it'll never have the opportunity to work for you, because I want you to be career happy. Now go try it. See you back here next time.